I think we're certainly all aware of lots of challenges that we're facing in the church right now. And in some ways, some of the political infighting and things like that, unfortunately, as a way of making its way into the church, and we see that in parishes and larger scale. But having said all of that, I really cannot imagine having to deal with the seminary at a time of greater change in the church than right in the wake of the Second Vatican Council. And whenever I've had the privilege of meeting, priests who were here as seminarians at that time, to a man, and I mean this in all sincerity, to a man, they will cite their gratitude to the person who held my position at that time, the man we honor tonight, Bishop Jack Gorman. How he literally had to, in some ways, reconfigure, reinvent what seminary formation meant and what it would mean for the future. And as I say, I'm often, it boggles my mind to think about what that must have entailed. To really envision the church in a sense where so many things were changing, not just the language in which the liturgy was celebrated, but what parishes would look like, how the priests would interact with people. Because some things never change, obviously. Our human nature remains the same, but how we interact with church does evolve. And so just a huge debt of gratitude that I have, even through the years since then, in what the church in the Archdiocese of Chicago and really throughout the nation has benefited from the vision of Bishop Jack. But he was ordained to the priesthood in 1952. Number of parish assignments after his ordination, but then was asked to be rector here in 1965, and a position that he held for 8 years. Then went on to be pastor at St. Michael's in Orland Park for 14 years. A number of St. Michael's folks here. Was ordained bishop in 1988. A number of other positions in the church here in the Archdiocese. Served as vicar general, as bishop, and then auxiliary bishop up in this neck of the woods in Vicariate 1, and then down on the south side in Vicariate 5. So two very different environments. One thing I admire, he has a PhD in clinical psychology, and it made me realize how ill-prepared I was for this job. That's where I should have put my time and attention. But just in so many different ways, I think his legacy thrives not only in the Archdiocese, but in many ways here. And before passing on to him a very well-deserved award named in honor of Cardinal Bernardin, I just want to quote for you the line that ended little article, really a large article, deservedly so, in the Chicago Catholic newspaper in honor of his 95th birthday, which was just celebrated last year. But as he eloquently was talking about how he understood, the mission of the priests and the priests who came out of here, but this is what he said, and this ended the article. This was his advice to any new auxiliary bishops, but I think we can all benefit from it. Just continue to help and guide the parishes. The church is meant to serve the people through their parishes. And that certainly is an anthem that I've tried to march to, and in the few times I've had the privilege of really picking the brain of Bishop Jack Gorman, that's a message that has come through loud and clear. And you do see that legacy in so many ways. And the seminarians here, to whom I am certainly grateful for the service they've provided tonight, but they've heard me say that so many times. At the end of the day, it's impossible to be formed to be a parish priest if you're not doing your studies and your prayer lockstep with actually being in and amongst the people that, God willing, you're being asked to serve. So I cannot think of a more fitting recipient of this honor than Bishop Jack Gorman. So please join me in congratulating him.
Thank you, Father John Carchi, for welcoming here to familiar territory, the seminary. Thank all of you for coming, especially the golfers. I spent a long time on that course. Just briefly, I am so pleased to receive this Cardinal Bernardin Award. Why? Because I lived with him and worked with him for a number of years. He used to tell us that his great Italian father always spoke to him about the importance of peace. So his mission to other people, for those who serve, always focused on peace, working into situations which were difficult and controversial often, and try to bring peace. He succeeded many times, and many times he failed. Let me give you a few examples. You know, the bishops of our whole country get together twice a year. And when they get together, it's always around difficult issues and sometimes very different positions. They would go back and forth and back and forth. They'd wait till the end and call Joe Cardinal Bernardin up. And he would come with a suggestion to pull the piece together for peace. Many of them appreciated it. Many of them disagreed with him. The other time, remember in the early 90s, when some of our Chicago priests were accused of sexual mishandling of children. It was devastating. They called together a SALT committee and he said, figure out what's going on and create a program for the archdiocese. That took a year. And finally, it was put together in a little compendium. And he brought 300 pieces of that to the next bishop's meeting, put it on the desk of every one of the bishops of the country. Many of them appreciated that because they could use that to adapt their own, going back to their own diocese. Some of them left it there and said, that's not our problem, that's a Chicago problem. And then remember a few years later when he was accused of sexual abuse. That went on for almost for months. And he came to me one night in the room and he said, Jack, will I ever get through this? He was humiliated, broken. And then finally, the one who made the accusation recanted and said, I lied. Then he went back and met with him for reconciliation. You see the theme of peace all the way through his mission. The last few months of his life, he wrote this wonderful little book talking about the examples he had moving for peace in his mission. What succeeded, many failed. And he called the book The Gift of Peace. The Gift of Peace. The night before, the day he died, I was in an elevator someplace downtown. And the gentleman in the elevator, and he saw the collar, and he said, you know, I'm Jewish, but we've all lost a good friend in Cardinal Bernardin. We all remember that long procession of cars from Holy Name Cathedral down to Mount Carmel Cemetery, a long, long way. Along the curbs of the streets were people lined up, remember? Men and women lined up all the way. Children lined up. Policemen and firemen, all in uniform, lined up. The Gift of Peace was part of his mission. And that's why I'm so pleased to accept this award. Thank you very much.